The colony of Erebos 9 floated like a small blue gem in the darkness of space. It was one of the youngest human worlds, calm, green, and full of life. Children played under twin suns, farmers grew crops in glass domes, and small shuttles drifted across the clear morning skies. To the people of Erebos 9, the galaxy felt peaceful. War was something they only read about in history books. They believed humanity had finally found its place among the stars, but peace is always silent before it breaks. Far above the planet's atmosphere, the early warning station, Argus One watched the void. Lieutenant Maraven sat at her console, sipping cold coffee, bored and half asleep. For years, nothing unusual had ever appeared on her radar. Then, at 0300 hours, a red light blinked. Unidentified signatures. Multiple contacts, she whispered, blinking twice to make sure. The screen flashed again. Then again, she called her captain. "Sir, we have unknown vessels approaching fast from Sector Thatnine. They're not broadcasting any ID." The captain leaned over her shoulder. At first, he thought it was a glitch, maybe a solar flare confusing the system. But then the radar dots multiplied. 10, 20, 50, and they were moving fast. "Too fast. Send a transmission to Planetary Command," he ordered. "Let's find out who they are." Mara's hands shook as she sent the signal. Seconds turned into long, cold minutes. No reply came back. Suddenly, every sensor went dark. The station lights flickered once, then died. Mara looked out through the observation window and saw them. Dark shapes sliding out of the shadows of space. Their hulls were black and jagged, glowing with a red pulse like a beating heart. The alien ships didn't move like human vessels. They drifted smoothly. Like hunters gliding through deep water, one of them turned. And in that moment, Mara knew they had been seen. Evasive maneuvers? The captain shouted, but it was too late. A beam of pure white light cut through the darkness, slicing the Argus One station in half. The explosion lit up the upper orbit of Erebos 9 like a new sun, down on the surface. People saw the flash and thought it was a meteor shower. Children pointed and laughed. Then the sirens began to scream. Governor Elias Trent rushed into the control center, his face pale. "Report," he shouted. The officers around him scrambled, shouting over each other. Multiple alien ships entering atmosphere. Defense batteries are powering up. Evacuation orders initiated for civilian sectors. Through the control room windows, they saw fiery trails cutting across the sky. Alien warships descended like falling stars, their engines roaring, their weapons glowing. The first bombardment began in the northern hemisphere. Cities that had taken years to build were erased in seconds. The ground shook as explosions rolled across the planet. Skyscrapers crumbled. Oceans boiled under orbital fire. People tried to flee, families running for shuttles, soldiers taking positions, medics shouting for help. But the aliens didn't stop. They didn't ask for surrender. They didn't answer hails. They simply destroyed everything. From space, the attack looked like a firestorm. From the ground, it felt like the end of the world. In the command bunker, Governor Trent watched the live feeds disappear one by one. Each city's channel went dark, replaced by static. He whispered, "Why? We never even met them." Beside him, a young communication officer shouted, "Governor, we've got a channel open. It's a ship trying to send a distress call. Patch it through," Trent said. The voice came through broken and faint, a woman's voice gasping for air. "This is Colony Transport Vega. We are under attack." The aliens, they're burning everything. A loud burst of static cut her off. The sound that followed wasn't human, a deep, echoing growl like metal tearing. Then silence. Governor Trent closed his eyes. He knew there would be no help. No one even knew what these creatures wanted. He turned to the officer beside him. "Send one final message to Earth. Tell them, the colony is lost." The officer nodded, tears running down his face, and began typing the message. "Erebos 9, under attack. Unknown alien fleet. No survivors expected. Tell Earth the transmission stopped mid-sentence." An enormous explosion shook the bunker as the roof caved in from orbit. The last surviving probe recorded the destruction, glowing continents, smoke rising into the void, a human world dying. The probe continued to drift, carrying that one unfinished message toward Earth. Hours later, silence covered Erebos 9. Ash floated in the winds. The aliens vanished into deep space as quickly as they came, leaving nothing but ruins behind. But in the darkness of the Milky Way, that final signal continued its journey. It was weak, broken, and half lost. But it carried a message powerful enough to change the fate of humanity forever. When the transmission finally reached Earth, it played only 5 words before cutting out, "They're here." Tell Earth, and then only static. The silence after that message was heavier than any sound. The stars seemed to hold their breath. Somewhere unseen in the cold dark of space, the true storm was beginning to rise. The message from Erebos 9 reached Earth 3 weeks later. By then, the stars had already forgotten the light of that small human world. But on Earth, the moment that signal played, everything changed. Inside the United Earth Command Center, deep beneath the city of Geneva, the recording played again and again. The screen showed nothing but static, then a flash of flame, screams, and a single broken sentence. "They're here." Tell Earth, then silence. No one in the room spoke for a long time. The air felt heavy, thick with disbelief. Some refused to believe it was real. Others just stared, lost for words. Finally, Admiral Rhea Kale stood from her chair. She was tall, calm, her eyes cold like the deep ocean. She had fought in old wars, wars against pirates, rebels, even small alien raiders. But this was different. Rhea looked at the room full of world leaders, generals, and scientists. "Erebos 9 is gone," she said quietly, "and we don't know who did it." A man in a dark suit, the Earth Council representative for Mars, slammed his hand on the table. "How can we not know? We have scanners across half the galaxy." Rhea didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned to the holographic screen where a blurry image appeared, ships shaped like knives, dark and glowing red. "Our deep space sensors picked up these," she said. "Unknown configuration. Unknown language. Unknown energy source. They appeared near Erebos 9 for 12 minutes, then vanished." A scientist, pale and nervous, spoke up. "We ran comparisons through the galactic archives. These ships match descriptions found in old exploration logs. They belong to a species known as the Zarkon Dominion." The name made the room go silent again. The Zarkon Dominion, an empire from beyond known space. A species older than humanity's first rockets, feared for their cruelty. They never traded, never spoke, never negotiated. They conquered. They erased. One general muttered, "They're supposed to be myths." Rhea looked straight at him. "They're not myths anymore." She pressed a button, and the next image showed the surface of Erebos 9 after the attack: black soil, burned oceans, and ruins still glowing red. The entire planet looked dead. A voice cracked from the back of the room. "How many survivors?" Rhea's eyes lowered. "None." The silence returned. Outside the command center, the world kept spinning. People went to work. Children played. Cities glowed with life. But inside those walls, the truth had already broken something inside humanity that night. The Earth Council gathered in emergency session. For 12 hours, the greatest minds of the human race argued. Some wanted to hide, to seal the solar system and prepare defenses. Others demanded vengeance, to strike back before the aliens returned at one point. The president of Earth, an old woman named Celine Ward, spoke softly. "If we do nothing, they will come again. If we fight, we risk extinction. So tell me, what does humanity stand for?" The answer came not from a politician, but from Admiral Rhea. She rose slowly, her voice steady and cold. "We stand for life. We stand for our people. And we never forget those who fall." She turned toward the holographic image of Erebos 9, now just a silent world of ashes. "They wanted to erase us," she said. "They wanted us to fear the dark. But I say let the dark fear us." Her words spread across the room like fire. Generals nodded. Scientists whispered, Even the council president gave a small, tired smile. And with that, Operation Final Dawn was born. Across the solar system, orders spread in secret. Factories on Mars began retooling production lines. Shipyards on Titan reopened after decades of silence. The Luna shipforge, long closed after the peace era, started building again, not transports or survey craft, warships. Thousands of engineers, pilots, and soldiers volunteered. Some for revenge, some for duty, all for humanity. Messages were sent through encrypted channels to every colony still standing. Prepare your fleets. The Zarkon Dominion has declared war on us, and we will answer. Rhea personally visited the training centers. She walked among young recruits, some barely 20 years old. Most had never seen combat, but all of them carried the same fire in their eyes. One of them, a nervous pilot named Jonas Hale, saluted her. "Admiral, do we really stand a chance against them?" Rhea looked at him for a long moment. "No," she said. "Not yet." Then she placed a hand on his shoulder. "But we will." Her voice carried through the training hall like a promise that humanity would not die quietly. Weeks turned into months. New warships rose from the docks, each one larger, stronger, faster than anything before. The media called it the rebirth of the Terran fleet. To the people, it was hope. To the Zarkon Dominion, it would soon become fear. Rhea stood on the command deck of the first completed dreadnought, the UES Resolute. Outside the viewing window stretched the endless stars, and somewhere out there, the enemy who had destroyed Erebos 9, she whispered to herself, "You wanted us gone. Now we're coming for you." Back on Earth, the president looked out her window as the first fleet left orbit, engines burning bright like small suns. Beside her, an aide asked, "Do you think this will stop them?" The president didn't answer right away. Instead, she said quietly, "No, but it will remind the galaxy who we are." The stars outside flickered, silent witnesses to humanity's choice. And far beyond the solar system, in the cold reaches of unknown space, the Zarkon Dominion listened. They had burned a colony to ash. They thought humanity would grieve and hide. They were wrong, because now humanity was preparing to strike back, and the galaxy was about to learn what it truly meant to make enemies of Earth. The stars above the solar system no longer looked peaceful. Every world, Earth, Mars, Luna, Titan, was alive with movement and noise. The quiet age of peace was over. The era of war had returned. After the fall of Erebos 9, humanity changed. No longer did people speak of progress or trade or exploration. Now, they spoke of fleets, of vengeance, of defense. Across every city, every station, every colony, there was only one phrase whispered again and again. For Erebos 9. Factories that once built cargo ships now forged steel hulls for war. Robotic arms hammered armor plates. Engines roared on Mars as new dreadnoughts rose from their cradles. Thousands of workers watched with pride as those ships climbed toward the red sky, glowing like newborn suns. Each world gave what it could. Earth gave leadership and command. Mars gave industry. The moon built weapons. And Titan, cold and distant, built the largest shipyard ever made by human hands. In the orbit above Titan, the UES Vanguard, first of a new dreadnought class, came to life. It was more than a ship, it was a symbol. Its hull stretched for kilometers. Its engines could light up an entire moon. And deep inside it, humans worked tirelessly, preparing for the coming war. Admiral Rhea Kale walked through the command deck of the Vanguard, her steps echoing on the metal floor. All around her, officers saluted. She nodded back, her expression calm but fierce. Every night she still dreamed of Erebos 9, the burning skies, the final transmission. That memory became her fuel. "Status report," she said to her first officer. "Commander Ilya Toron." "All systems operational," Ilya replied. "We're running engine tests on the last dreadnoughts. Fleet completion in 68 hours. Rhea looked out at the vast darkness of space. She could see other ships, thousands of them aligned in neat formations. Some large as cities, others small and fast like hunters. Together they looked like an iron ocean stretching to infinity. 500,000 warships, she whispered. The number was impossible to imagine. Never in human history had such a fleet existed. Back on Earth, the people watched through live broadcasts as ship after ship left orbit. The skies glowed every night with the light of launches. Children waved flags. Old veterans saluted. Even those who had never held a weapon felt pride rise in their hearts. For the first time, humanity wasn't just defending, it was uniting. The president of Earth, Celine Ward, gave a short speech that played across every screen in the solar system. They thought humanity was fragile. They thought fear would break us. But fear does not break us. It builds us. The fire that destroyed Erebos 9 will not end us. It will light our way. Across the colonies, her words became a call to arms. Volunteers flooded the enlistment centers. Even miners, engineers, and scientists joined. They all wanted to stand against the darkness. Meanwhile, deep in a hidden lab beneath Luna, scientists worked on something secret, a weapon so powerful it could decide the war before it began. They called it the Solar Spear. It was a massive energy cannon powered by the fusion core of a captured star. It could destroy entire fleets in one strike, but no one knew if it would work. Rhea visited the lab one night. The lead scientist, Dr. Ren Korin, looked exhausted. "This weapon could save us," he said quietly, "or destroy us if it fails." Rhea stared at the glowing reactor chamber. "It won't fail," she said, "because humanity can't afford failure anymore." As the fleet grew, the tension also grew. Every soldier knew what was coming. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. A storm gathering at the edge of the galaxy. On Mars, Jonas Hale, now a fighter pilot, wrote a message to his family before his deployment. "If you see the stars shine brighter one night, know that I'm out there fighting for you." He looked out the window at the endless red desert and whispered, "For Erebos 9." 3 days later, the fleet stood ready. 500,000 warships, dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, and fighter wings floated in orbit around Saturn, forming an enormous ring of light around the planet. Every engine hummed, every weapon charged. The void around them seemed to tremble. Admiral Rhea stood on the bridge of the Vanguard. Wearing her dark uniform, her hands clasped behind her back. Commander Ilya walked up beside her. "All ships report ready, Admiral," he said. "Where do we go?" Rhea looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was the Zarkon Dominion, the monsters, who had burned a peaceful world to ash. Her voice was steady when she answered. "Set course for the Erebos system. We start there." The order spread through the fleet like fire. Engines powered up. Thousands of ships aligned their jump drives. "Fleet command to all units," Rhea's voice echoed through the comms. "This is for every life lost. This is for Erebos 9. Let the galaxy remember our name." The countdown began. "Jump in 5, 4, 3. The stars outside the windows stretched into lines of light. Then the fleet vanished into hyperspace. For a few moments, the solar system was silent again. Families looked up at the stars, knowing their loved ones were out there, heading into the unknown, and somewhere far beyond human reach, deep in Zarkon space. Alien commanders received a signal from their border stations. Unidentified readings. Massive numbers. Human ships, the Zarkon warlords laughed, but only for a moment. Because soon, they would understand what was coming for them. The storm had gathered, and it was heading straight for them. The stars twisted as the Terran fleet dropped out of hyperspace. One by one, 500,000 warships appeared from the void, surrounding the dead world of Erebos 9. For a long moment, no one spoke. The planet hung silent below, black, broken, and lifeless. The once green forests were now fields of ash. Even from orbit, they could see the scars of bombardment, vast craters. Glowing with faint red light, Admiral Rhea Kale stood on the bridge of her flagship. U.S. Vanguard staring at the ruined world. Her reflection in the window looked pale and still, like a ghost. "This was where it began," she whispered. Commander Ilya Torrance stood beside her, his jaw tight. "And this is where it ends." All across the fleet, soldiers and pilots watched the dead planet in silence. No one needed orders. Every one of them knew why they were here. "Admiral Roy," said the comms officer suddenly. "We're picking up signals. Multiple contacts inbound." Rhea turned sharply. "Origin. Outer orbit. Coming from the Erebos debris field. They're cloaked, but we've got them." On the holographic display, dozens of red dots appeared. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The Zarkon Dominion was waiting for them. The alien fleet emerged from the shadows, like a swarm of blades, black, curved, and alive with pulsing crimson energy. Their ships didn't form clean formations like human fleets. They moved like predators, weaving and circling, silent and deadly. One of the human officers whispered they knew we'd come. Rhea's eyes narrowed. "Good. Saves us the trouble of finding them." The comms crackled. A Zarkon signal came through, distorted, harsh, like claws scraping metal. Then, translated into broken English, a cold voice said, "Humans, your fire was weak. You come to die as your children did." Rhea didn't reply. Instead, she simply gave a short command. All ships open fire. First volley from the human fleet turned the darkness into daylight. Millions of plasma bolts, railgun slugs, and missile trails shot across the void. The shockwave rolled like thunder through the empty space. Zarkon ships dodged and returned fire. Their energy beams sliced through several destroyers instantly. One dreadnought exploded, scattering fire and debris across the formation. "Vanguard's shield holding at 70%, shouted the tactical officer. Rhea's voice remained calm. "Hold formation. Keep the pressure on them. They think we're weak. Show them we are not." Human ships shifted into defensive walls, dreadnoughts in front, carriers behind, fighters pouring out like silver swarms. Jonas Hale, now a lead pilot, flew at the head of his squadron. "Wing 1, follow my lead," he shouted. He dove between two alien ships, locked on, and fired a cluster of plasma torpedoes. Both targets exploded, lighting up his cockpit with orange fire. "Target down." "For Erebos 9, he yelled. Back on the Vanguard, the battle raged in every direction. The sound of alarms and shouting filled the bridge. Each second, another name disappeared from the fleet roster. Rhea's gaze stayed fixed on the holographic display on the enormous alien flagship that now appeared behind the enemy lines. It was unlike anything seen before, kilometers wide, covered in glowing spines, with a rotating core of red light pulsing in its center. "That's their command ship," said Ilya. Rhea nodded slowly. "Then we take it down." "Commander Torin, ready the solar spear," she ordered. The crew went silent. Even in the chaos of war, those words carried fear. A deep hum echoed through the ship as enormous energy conduits began to glow. The solar spear, humanity's most dangerous weapon, drew power from an artificial sun stored inside the dreadnought's core. The lights on the bridge dimmed as the weapon charged. "Power levels at 80%, reported the engineer. "Firing solution locked." Rhea gave the order. "Fire." A single beam of pure white light burst from the Vanguard's main cannon, cutting through the darkness like a spear of heaven. It struck the alien flagship dead center. For a second, nothing happened. Then the entire alien ship exploded, a blinding flash that outshone every star in sight. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, tearing smaller ships apart, forcing both fleets to scatter. Cheers erupted across human channels. "Target destroyed. We got them." "For Erebos 9? But Rhea didn't cheer. Her eyes remained fixed on the sensor display. "Wait," she said softly. "Something's wrong." From the fading explosion, new red signals appeared. Pieces of the alien flagship were still moving, reforming. The Zarkon ship was rebuilding itself. "They're regenerating," shouted Ilya. Before anyone could react, the alien flagship reformed completely, now glowing brighter and stronger. It fired a massive red beam straight at the Vanguard, Brace for impact. The beam hit. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Panels exploded, smoke filled the bridge, and crew members were thrown to the floor. Shields down to 20%, cried the tactical officer. Engineering deck hit. Rhea stood firm, gripping the rail. Her voice was cold, steady, and sharp. Tell all ships to fall back to defensive positions. Regroup on my mark. We're not done yet. Jonas's fighter spun as enemy blasts passed inches from his cockpit. He gritted his teeth. He could see the massive alien ship ahead, glowing like a red star. This thing won't die, he muttered. A voice came through his comms, Admiral Rhea's. All units, focus fire on that ship's core. Don't stop until it burns. Every human ship turned toward the flagship. Missiles, beams, and torpedoes rained down like a storm. The alien core pulsed brighter than cracked. A final blast of white light filled the void. When the light faded, the alien flagship was gone. Only dust and fire remained. The battlefield went silent. The surviving Zarkon ships began retreating into deep space. Human ships held position, guns still ready, engines burning. Rhea finally exhaled, her voice low. Erebosnine is avenged. But Commander Ilya shook his head. Admiral, look. On the outer edge of the sensor grid, hundreds of new red signals appeared, massive, distant, and growing. It wasn't over. Rhea stared at the display. Her voice turned hard again. Then we fight again. She looked out at the stars. Her eyes filled with fire. The war had just begun. The battlefield around Erebos 9 was quiet for only a moment. Then the sensors screamed again. Multiple contacts inbound. Shouted the comms officer on the Vanguard. Rhea turned toward the display. Hundreds of new red dots were appearing, spreading like blood across the map. The Zarkon Dominion had sent reinforcements. Fleet strength estimate, she asked. Unknown, replied Commander Ilya Torin, his voice tight. There's too many to count. Rhea didn't blink. Then we fight until there's none left to count. The second wave hit with terrible force. Alien ships poured into the system like a storm of knives. Their weapons burned white-hot, slicing through human formations. The sky above Erebos 9 became a blinding web of fire and metal. Explosions bloomed everywhere, entire cruisers torn apart, dreadnoughts ripped open like tin. The human fleet tried to hold its formation, but the enemy pressed harder, faster. Group Delta is gone. A voice shouted through comms. Carrier Solstice destroyed? Wing 6 requesting backup. Jonas Hale's squadron dove through the chaos, dodging enemy beams. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He had never seen so many ships, not even in training simulations. Wing 2, cover the dreadnoughts, he yelled. But the enemy was endless. Every time one Zarkon ship fell, two more appeared. Jonas fired again and again until his ship shook from recoil. He saw one of his wingmates explode beside him. There was no time to mourn, only to fight. For Erebos 9, he whispered, his teeth clenched, on the bridge of the Vanguard. Rhea watched as icons disappeared from the holographic map, each one a ship lost, a crew gone. The losses were growing. Even the solar spear needed time to recharge, and time was running out. Admiral, said Ilya, if we stay here, we'll lose everything. Rhea looked up, her face hard. If we run, we lose everything anyway. The ship shuddered under another impact. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Smoke filled the air. Yet through the chaos, Rhea remained unshaken. All ships, she ordered, formed defensive circle around the Vanguard. We make our stand here. The fleet obeyed. Human ships rotated, forming a protective ring. They fought like wounded lions, desperate and unyielding. Thousands of smaller Zarkon ships crashed against them like waves against stone. The battle dragged on for hours, then for days. No one slept. No one ate. Only the sound of weapons, engines, and screams filled the Psalms. In the command room, Admiral Rhea finally heard the words she had waited for. Solar Spear is fully charged? She turned sharply. Target the center of their fleet. Let's end this. The great weapon roared again. A column of pure white energy shot from the vanguard, cutting through hundreds of enemy ships in a single stroke. The blast illuminated space like a newborn star. The shockwave was so strong, it threw smaller vessels off course. When the light faded, the center of the Zarkon formation was gone, a burning void where thousands of ships had been. The crew cheered. For a brief second, hope returned. But hope didn't last long. Sensors began to beep again, faint at first. More signals appeared. Admiral. Another fleet inbound? Bigger than before. It wasn't just reinforcements. This was the Zarkon Core Armada, their strongest force. The stars turned red as the enemy arrived. Massive ships, each the size of a moon, entered orbit. Their hulls glowed with molten light. At the center was something worse, a massive command vessel unlike anything seen before. It looked alive. Its surface moved like skin, and deep within it pulsed a gigantic heart of energy. The Zarkon Emperor himself had come. The alien voice filled every human channel, cold and metallic. Your kind burns bright but too fast. The galaxy belongs to the strong. You will fade, as all fire fades. Ria's jaw tightened. Her reply was calm and sharp. Then remember this fire. Ugh. She turned to her crew. Focus all weapons on that command ship. This ends here. Every surviving human ship turned its guns. They fired together, railguns, missiles, plasma beams, everything at once. The void became white and gold. The alien ship took the full impact and staggered, but did not fall. Then it answered. A massive red beam shot out, sweeping across the human fleet. Entire dreadnoughts vanished. The vanguard itself shook violently. Shields down to 10%, shouted Ilya. Secondary reactors failing. The lights flickered. Explosions rippled through the lower decks. Dozens of crew members were gone in seconds. Jonas, flying near the flagship, saw it all. He knew they were losing, but he also knew they couldn't stop. He opened a channel. All fighters on me, aim for that heart. We can break it open. He led the surviving squadrons straight into the storm. Alien fighters swarmed them, beams slicing past their wings. Jonas pushed harder. His ship shook, alarm screaming. But he didn't stop. He reached the alien ship's core, a glowing red sphere larger than his entire squadron. Now, he shouted, and launched every missile he had left. Dozens of explosions rippled across the alien hull. Cracks began to form. The massive core flickered from the vanguard. Ria saw it happen. Her voice broke the silence. All ships, fire everything. Now, the combined fire of the fleet hit the same point, the cracked heart of the enemy ship. The red glow turned white. Then the entire Zarkon command vessel exploded in a blinding flash. The shockwave hit like a tidal wave, tearing apart both fleets. Human ships tumbled. Alien ships burned. And then, finally, silence. When the light faded, the stars returned. Half the human fleet was gone. The rest floated, damaged and quiet. On the Vanguard's bridge, smoke drifted through the air. Ria stood among the wreckage, her uniform torn, her face streaked with ash. Commander Ilya was beside her, bleeding from a cut on his head. Status? She asked softly. Half our ships destroyed. The rest barely holding together, he said. But the Zarkon fleet, it's gone. Ria closed her eyes. She thought of the pilots, the crews, the billions who had fought and died. Victory felt heavy, not bright. The price was too high, she whispered. Ilya nodded. Maybe, but they'll remember this day. Ria looked out the cracked window at the burning remains of the enemy fleet. Her voice was quiet, but it carried strength. Let them remember, humanity may bleed, but it never bows. As the survivors began rescue operations, a small message echoed across the coms, faint, broken but human. Jonas Hale's voice fading into static. Tell Earth, we did it. The channel went silent, and in that silence, The stars seemed to burn brighter, as if honoring the fallen. Humanity had won. But the victory had cost more than anyone could imagine. The war was over. Space around, Revis 9 was quiet again. The silence of victory, the silence after the storm. Drifting ships floated among the stars, their lights dim and their hulls scarred. Everywhere there were signs of both glory and grief. The once mighty Terran armada was broken, but not defeated. 500,000 warships had come. Barely 50,000 remained. Yet those who survived carried something stronger than metal or fuel. They carried the memory of what humanity had done. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Admiral Rhea Kale stood alone. The great dreadnought was badly damaged, fire scars along its hull, engines flickering weakly. But it still flew. The stars outside glowed with strange beauty. Debris fields sparkled like dying embers. Among them drifted the remains of the Zarkon fleet, silent monuments to a fallen empire. Commander Ilya Torin limped onto the bridge, his arm in a sling. He looked at Rhea and gave a tired smile. "We did it," he said softly. Rhea didn't smile back. Her eyes were distant. "We survived," she replied. "That's not the same thing." She turned to the window. "Jonas Hale, wing commander of the 9th Squadron," she whispered. No one had heard from him since the final explosion. Rhea liked to think he was still out there, somewhere among the stars, flying free. The radio crackled. "Admiral," came a voice. "Earth Command is requesting transmission." Rhea nodded slowly. "Put them through." The holographic screen flickered to life. A tired-looking general appeared, his uniform neat, but his eyes red with exhaustion. "Admiral Kale," he said, his voice heavy with emotion, "your report is confirmed. The Zarkon Dominion fleet is destroyed. The threat is ended." Rhea didn't answer at first. She looked around the bridge, at the empty chairs, at the quiet crew, at the scars on the walls. Then she said softly, "At what cost?" The general lowered his head. "I know. But history will remember you. All of you." Rhea looked back at the stars. "History should remember them," she said. "Not me." A few days later, what remained of the Terran fleet began the long journey home. Their ships, though damaged, flew in perfect formation. Even broken, they looked magnificent, a symbol of human strength and unity. Across the galaxy, transmissions spread, messages, videos, data streams from the battle. Billions of humans watched in awe as they saw what their species had done. They saw 500,000 ships rise against an empire that ruled the stars. They saw humanity stand together, fight together, and win. People on Earth wept, cheered, and prayed. The words echoed across the networks, across the colonies. Humanity does not kneel. When the Vanguard finally entered Earth's orbit, the sight was breathtaking. Every screen, every tower, every city on the planet watched their return. The sky filled with ships, their hulls blackened and scarred, yet shining in the sunlight like heroes. Rhea stood at the command deck as her ship descended. For the first time in months, she saw blue skies, clouds, oceans, the green of continents. After endless darkness, the light of home was almost too bright to bear. Crowds filled every city. Flags waved, bells rang, and voices shouted their names. But Rhea didn't feel pride. She felt weight, the weight of the fallen, in the main plaza of New Geneva. A monument was already being built, a ring of stone and steel, with the names of every ship and every soldier who had fallen. At its center was a single line, engraved in silver: "They went to the stars and brought humanity home." Later, in a quiet ceremony, Rhea placed her admiral's badge on the monument. She stood there for a long time, her face unreadable. When Ilya joined her, he said softly, "You're leaving." Rhea nodded. "I've done my part. It's time for others to lead." He gave a sad smile. "Where will you go?" She looked up at the night sky, at the same stars she had fought under. "Out there," she said, "to find what's left of the Zarkon, to make sure they never rise again." Weeks later, deep in the quiet of space, the sensors of an old relay station detected something strange. A signal, weak, distant, coming from far beyond known space. At first, they thought it was static. But then they heard the pattern. Rhythmic, repeating, almost like a heartbeat. The signal contained one word. A word written in an alien language, but now translated. Vengeance. Back on Earth, Rhea received the report. She stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city lights. The war was over, but peace. Peace was never simple. Ilya's voice came through the communicator. Another signal?
Yes,
She said quietly. It's not over. Something survived, or something new has awakened. There was silence on the other end. Then Ilya said, "What do we do?" Rhea's eyes turned to the stars again. Her voice was calm, steady, and full of the same unbroken fire as before. "We prepare." She turned away, her reflection fading into the night sky. The stars above seemed brighter, not as cold as before, but alive. Humanity had changed. They had faced extinction and refused to fall. And now they were stronger than ever, because in the endless darkness of space, there was one truth that could never die. Humans fight. Humans rise, humans endure. And as the sun rose over Earth, lighting the ships that hovered above, the words echoed through every world, every colony, every heart. This is the age of humanity, the age of the unbroken.